remind you to please silence your electronic devices. It will be greatly appreciated. Good evening, everyone. I call the Village Board of Trustees meeting for January 15, 2019 to order. Roll call, Ms. Winston.
Here.
Mr. Carvel. Here. Mr. DeShays.
Here.
Mr. LeBeer. Here. I am here. We have a presentation by the Superintendent of Massena Electric Department. Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all. I'm not here in my capacity as Superintendent of Massena Electric. I'm here as Chairman of the Arbor Committee. We had a inventory and strategic plan done this past summer, which we just received December 20th, that I want to cover with the board because it was the village that arranged the, and Monique in particular, who helped arrange the grant that paid for this inventory and strategic plan. So I wanted to report back to the board to let you know what the committee is going to be seeing and what we're going to be acting upon. So Barb Sanford is here with me. We've also got Mark Ryan, Becca Violi, Dale Ramos, Sharon Ryan, and Mike Brissett on our board. So again, thank you for the trust you put in us. The grant we received from the DEC was $50,000. It's going to provide a roadmap for the Arbor Committee to work off of. What the inventory is, it looked through the whole village and parts outside the village. In the village, it looks at the right-of-ways. It doesn't look in backyards. It looks at right-of-ways and parklands. So that's what we're going to report on. When the trees were looked at, it was based on size, age, species, and overall health. So let's go to slide 2, which I blame Danny Casey, who's my public relations department. He's also a summer intern. He put this together, and he thinks everyone has his eyesight. But 91% of the trees were found to be in fair condition or better. So that's the important part. When we did this inventory and strategic plan, one of the sensitivities we had was to the emerald ash borer, which you may have seen in the newspaper. We know it's in Hogansburg, or we're told it's in Hogansburg. We're pretty sure it's in Ogdensburg. We're in the middle, and it's moving towards us. So we wanted to get a sense of how many ash trees we have, and that was where it started. I think it's at the country club, Massena Country Club on 131, so it's moving this way. The value of the trees to our community as it stands now is about $200,000 annually, and what they found in the survey is that there's 66 varieties of trees in our community, which is pretty good. So this is the current tree population, and the priority 1 and priority 2, those are items. Priority 1 needs action in 2018, but we're going to get to it in 2019. The priority 2 is within the next 3 years. So those are important numbers for us. And then the tree planting of 944, I'm going to show you a map later that shows where those trees are needed. So the priority 1 removals and pruning, so that's about $42,000 by the estimate of the arborist who did the study for Arbor Pro. As I said, we got the report December 20th. Haas and I and Matt Gray are going to go out and evaluate how much is the responsibility of Massena Electric and how much is the responsibility of the village. So I think that is a big but manageable number considering, in my opinion, where we've been in the past. And the ash trees were not as significant a part of our population, or at least in the right-of-ways. They weren't as big a part that I thought they were going to be. So that's all good news. So go to the next slide. So the blue dots are where the arborist evaluated Whether we can plant trees in all these locations is a big question, because you look at the neighborhood that's impacted there, the blue dots are largely in Homecroft and Grove, Bishop Street, Liberty, Center Street, Sycamore. The right-of-way that he was looking at, there's not a lot of distance between the road and the sidewalk to plant. Whether there's water lines or sewer lines underneath could be a problem. And one of the problems we've had in the past is whether the homeowner or occupant is willing to take care of the tree. So there are 944 locations on that map. There are 2,300 trees that are there that were counted, so that's a great number. And by our arborist comparison with other communities, we're in great shape with the number of trees we have. But there are certain neighborhoods that could need some attention, and now we have a roadmap for that. So hopefully with the, we can address some of the blue dots in the years to come. Could you go to the next slide, please? This is probably a familiar tree to all of us as we go out the front door. It's the large oak tree to the right of the door. Just because of its sensitivity, we asked the arborist to take a look at it. He said there's some decay at the base, it needs some pruning, and it's on the list of things we need to address right away. We should take some soil samples to help us develop a plan for it going forward, what nutrients we can provide. The Emerald Ash Borer, as I said at the start, that's why we applied for this grant, to get an assessment of where we were and to figure out whether the borer is in our community. If you have an ash tree in your yard and you see the bark peeling off and that kind of pattern underneath, that tells you that you have a borer. That picture wasn't taken in our community, but the ash trees we have are largely large ones, over 12 inches, and they're in fair condition or better. The recommendation was to develop a strategic plan for how we're going to combat the borer. There may be significant trees that we want to treat with nutrients. What do we call it? Not stake it. How do we feed the trees? Injection. So you can do injections to help the trees fight off the borer, or an alternative, you take them down before the borer gets into them, because you don't. Once the borer gets in, the tree it just collapses under its own weight after a few years. So for my day job with Massena Electric, that's a concern if the trees just start randomly coming down on power lines. And from a public safety concern, many communities in New York have struggled when addressing this. So if you go to the next slide. So our path going forward, I talked to you about the pruning list, which Haas and I and the Arbor Committee will work on. We're going to figure out how we're going to address all the blue dots that I showed you on the slide 3 or 4 ago. We're going to do the soil sample, as I mentioned, and we're going to develop a plan for the ash trees. We're going to evaluate if any of the ash trees we have, A, are infected, and B, are they critical enough to do injection? Because the injection is not cheap, and it has to be redone every 2 to 3 years, depending on which injection method we use. But if you go to the next slide, I wanted to thank a number of people, including the Arbor Committee and Monique, for putting up with the grants that I do. But Alcoa Foundation and American Forest, who's associated with Alcoa, they've been putting $12,000 to $20,000 into Arbor Committee efforts for the last 8 years, I think. So that's been wonderful for us, and really a godsend to help our planning efforts. And what the DEC did with this strategic plan and inventory is really going to help us leverage what Alcoa has helped us do. It's a roadmap that's going to be very valuable to us. So thanks to, what did I forget? Thanks for keeping me out of trouble once. The Power Authority has been great too. We've been able to leverage their tree power program along with the Alcoa relief program. And I forgot to put their logo up there, but yeah, they've been a lot of help as well. Thank you, Barb. So that's it, and I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, I'll do the best I can. Usually what I do is I pass the house when the tough questions come.
Thank you for the work. We appreciate the committee's work also, and Mr. Casey's work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just a side note, Andy, it's nice that you're replacing an awful lot of these trees too along your road. A lot of them are coming down, but we've got to replace those too. You're doing a good job. You're picking different spots where they're needed.
Yeah, we've, through one program or another, we've done 2,000 trees. We've focused on the high school and the grammar schools, the kids in the grammar schools.
The little league parks,
Yeah, and we did Alcoa Field, Park Avenue, Parker Avenue. We've done some good work, and it feels good to drive down some of those streets. Hopefully we can get a nice canopy back through the years. So,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Andy, who will put the strategy together?
Well, we have the strategic plan now that was provided by Arbor Pro, and now it's up to the Arbor Committee and see if Alcoa is going to have the funding to keep doing the project with us, and then start knocking on doors where the blue dots are, and that's where we'll put the trees. So,
Okay. Thank you.
we've got the plan now. It's just implementing it.
Thank you. Trustees, I have an addition to the agenda I want to add, so it would be under new business. So it would be 6E, which would be appointment to the Business Development Corporation Board. 6E. Report of officers and committees, the treasurer's report. Mr. Falk.
Hello, everyone. Start with the revenue and expense reports and the balance sheet reports. You should all have copies of them in the box downstairs. I have also included your year-end projections. Probably by next month, I will update them with the changes that I had to make recently on 17-18 financials. That affects the fund balance, some adjustments. So probably by next month's projections, you will see those carry forwards updated. So that'll bring this year's to where it should be. The results of the month and current year to date is in the summary above that, number 2. If you have any questions, let me know. Currently still working on year end. I made some more adjustments and reconciliations today, so I've got most of it done. I'm hoping by probably tomorrow, Thursday, get this wrapped up to the auditors so they can review it and put a blessing on it and move forward. So hoping, but there's some, again, some of these changes this year with the new GASB rule, as we 75, I believe it was. There isn't a lot of information out there because we're ahead of the curve. So how to disclose it has been a little bit of a challenge. But the reconciliations are tying out now, so I'm just kind of move forward again, trying to clean up some issues that we had from it. W-2s have been reconciled, and they have going and gone out as of now, so they should be done for employees. I have not started the 1099s. They're due by the end of this month, but it should be a lot easier this year than what it was last year, because last year we had to cross all the systems. I had to do a bunch of entries to kind of get the right balances in there. I say I haven't started. I actually haven't looked at it. Started on some of it a little bit, so I'd say I'm close to halfway through what I need to do for the reconciling. so I don't see that being an issue to have them done by the end of the month or out. The other item is we received $722,000, which was the 80% reimbursement for the DOT trail grant on December 28th. So that caught us up close to a year's worth, I think it was, of expenses. So that helped the checkbook for sure. So there's not much left on it at this point. I think we got everything in there for now. Caught up to date on it. So the only action I have is the adoption of the annual correcting and refunding of erroneous taxes
So
resolution.
we're gonna take that later on in the business. Questions for Mr. Falk? Thank you. Continuing on, code enforcement, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Lebear. Economic development, Ms. Winston, Mr. Lebear.
There is a BDC meeting Thursday at 4:30.
Fire committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Lebear.
We usually meet the end of the month, if there's anything, we didn't meet last month, so.
You want to meet on Christmas?
Personnel committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Deshays.
Nothing new.
Police committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Deshays.
Down talking with the lieutenant today, nothing to report at this time.
Recreation, Mr. Deshays.
Yes, under old business, the River Queens Tournament, which is a girls' tournament, there are only 5 teams involved in it, and Massena lost in the championship game. I'm not gonna tell you who beat them, because I don't know. Holiday skating over the holidays, various businesses and clubs sponsored free skating down the arena. It was well attended. Something that started quite a while ago when their kids are off for the holidays. It's nice to have these people someplace, something to do on vacation time. Water Street Park update, there was nothing new to report. It's just moving along slowly. The Barrel Roof Project, which is the arena, it's supposed to start in April and end of July the 1st. And I guess that's right on schedule, as far as I know. The Massena Cup was canceled because of lack of sign-up this year for the Massena Cup. The Massena Mite was for little skaters, hockey players, 8 years and younger. They got 23 teams lined up for it, and it's going to be February the 2nd. It's an all-day affair up from all over the North Country, some team from Canada. It's well attended. And that's about all I've got going on right now.
Street committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Lebear.
An issue on Irwin Ave, we talked about.
Yeah, concerns were raised on when there's an event at the nearby establishments, the parking being a narrow street. Trustee Winston and I have been talking back and forth, and it'd be great to get some additional input from others on that street to see how big of an issue it may be. So we're still looking into it.
So the issues are Friday nights and Sunday morning.
Correct. Been following Potsdam closely because they had similar issue with a couple of their narrow streets, and there's actually been concerns about overcorrecting, unintended consequences. People had the company over and didn't have spots for them to park because of potential new changes to regulations, so we just want to do our due diligence.
Water and sewer, Ms. Winston, Mr. Lebear.
Superintendent reported we had 5 water main breaks in 4 days in the town portion of the system, so we've communicated some concerns to them, and hopefully we get that ball going again on what they can possibly do to upgrade or improve their system out there, so keep you updated.
Initial public comment period. As always, we ask you to please stand, state your name for the record. We'd ask you to please come to the podium so the microphone picks up your voice. Initial public comment.
Hi, my name is Gina Snyder.
I'm from Massena with the Blues Cruise Motel. Mr. Deshays, who is doing the roof project? Do you know the company's name that's going to be doing the roof project? And who's paying for it, or was there a grant?
Repeat that again, please.
The roof project for the Massena Arena,
Yeah,
do you know if there is a grant?
yes, there's a grant,
And that was going to cover the cost of the roof?
just about, yes. They were-
The company that was awarded the bid is RSI out of Governor. It was funded and allocated by Senator Griffo through the Dormitory Authority for $250,000. So we have money in our roof fund, which will be taken toward that, and there are other upgrades going on at the arena, such as doors, shower heads, the cooling system, the brine system, and I forget the name, there's a piece of equipment that starts the whole refrigeration thing. So there's a number of upgrades that are occurring in that facility, and that grant is supporting that with the money from the capital
I'm
project.
glad to hear that, because I heard there was a lot of grants out there for recreation, so I was glad to hear that you did take advantage of that. At the last board meeting that we had, I had asked you a question about the airport, about the expansion a long time ago. There was a lot of talk about Massena expanding around the same time that Ogdensburg was expanding their airport, and I had asked you why did Ogdensburg did it and why didn't we move forward, and you said good question for the town. So Mr. Carbone called me and told me that it was all a rumor, that Massena was never going to expand the runway, and that the airport bought that house because the owners wouldn't put a light on it. So they bought it to put the light on top of it, and that they had bought, I said, well, what about the land and the trees that you bought? And they said that they bought the land and trees for maintenance. So I just wanted to give you an update on that, that it was a rumor. Also, Mayor, I had one question. If you didn't have your audited financials for the village of Massena in your hand right now, would you know where they were?
Yes,
May I ask Kevin the same question?
sure.
Kevin, would you know where your audited financials were if you didn't have them back for over a year? I asked the town where their audited financials are, and they said they were waiting on their auditors. So I called the auditors, and that was not true. The town board lied to me. So, and the auditors that have been doing their audit for multiple years, you think you've built a good relationship with the person you hired to come in to do your audit. Yes, Kevin? You talk to yours frequently? Well, I talked to them, and they told me not to take it personal that I was lied to. But I do, because I come here for you to get to know me, and for me to get to know you, and to help our Massena. And transparency is very important to me. Now, I asked them flat out if the auditors were waiting for anything from the town, and they said no, that they were waiting for the auditors for over a year. Now, I was in that field. I know, we want our desk cleaned off. We don't want anything on our desk. We don't want the stress from a situation. We want to let it go and move on. So I contacted them and let them know that the town board had publicly told Massena residents that they were waiting for them. This is not good business tactics, and I need your help. I need you to come to the board meeting tomorrow night, because I feel that I can trust you. And I need your help because the town does not have their financial statements. But I can tell you, after talking to 2 auditors, they're coming. They're on their way. The paperwork that the auditor was waiting for, they got it. That's all I can say, is that we'll have our town financials by February. But you're all town citizens. You all have a say, you all pay taxes too. You know, if we don't have our audited financials, we're not going to be able to get funding. As a business owner, when I go and ask a bank for money, they say, you come back to me with last 3 years' financial statements. It's the first thing any business person knows, you have to have your last 3 financial statements. And I'm not sure that our town board is like, has the business mind that either I do or other business people have, you know? And I need some help encouraging them to have that bit of mind and to know where their financial statements are. So, if you can come to the board meeting tomorrow night, I'd appreciate it as town citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Seeing none, moving on. Old business award bid, Levine's Construction, demolition of front porch at 104 East Dover Street. Mr. Fayad.
Yeah, at the last board meeting, I was given approval to obtain quotes for the removal of the porch that was damaged by fire back in 2016, I believe it was. And so what I did is I reached out to 6 various contractors in the local area, and there was one by paper. The objective was to demolish the 2-story porch, remove the, and properly dispose of the property, board up the remaining openings, and then also to provide us proper paperwork, including the insurance, naming the Village of Massena as additional insurance. So there were 6 contractors that I reached out to. 2 of them did not want to quote it. However, of the remaining 4, Paul Levine was the apparent low responsible bidder for $6,750. So my recommendation would be to award the bid to Levine's Construction.
So moved. Motion. Second by Ms. Winston. Discussion.
Yes. What is our chances of ever recouping this money? We're gonna put it on the taxes. What's our chances of ever getting that money back? I would estimate it as 0 to nothing. I don't think we're ever gonna see that again. My only thing with this is that if we're going to do something, we try to do it with the least amount of money laid out as possible. We have a very lenient winter so far. We have crews that are being paid on a daily basis. We have equipment that's bought and paid for. If the village was to do this themselves, all that would be, have to pay, that anybody would have to pay, is the dump fee. You gotta take the stuff to the dump. And a few 2x4s and board or plywood to board over the openings. So, to me, it makes more sense to not get back $1,000 than to not get back $6,700. It just, I don't know, it sounds to me like it's just a common thing. We're not gonna get it back, so why don't we do it as cheap as possible? The guys are already paid for, they're budgeted, they're gonna do something, they're somewhere. Equipment is there. So if you did it as cheap as possible, you wouldn't have that much money laid out if you never go to see it again. That's my only thought on that.
I mulled that over quite a bit before I approached the board at the last board meeting. And when it come right down to it, it was a little bit dangerous. And so when I went out to bid, or went out to quote this stuff, I told you there's 2 contractors that did not want to bid it. And they did not want to bid it because it's too dangerous to bid. That's the whole reason why we would rather not do it. We don't have the proper equipment. We do have the personnel. We have a lot of talent in depth in our department, but we don't have the equipment. And you can't just take a loader and pull that stuff off, because if you do that, the entire building's going to come down. That's what we're afraid of. We don't want to put anybody on the structure. So we ended up going out for bid.
That's the conversation Mr. Fayad and I had before the last meeting. That's the concern that I had, putting our staff up there to do something. It's not just, if it were to knock the entire building down or garage, then I think we have that skill set. Most people do, but our concern is the safety piece of it, and having to do it so delicately, so we're not injuring the rest of the structure and causing a bigger problem.
That's another thing I want to discuss. We're talking like Francis just said, we should have learned years ago, we had across the street right in front here, street properties right there, it's still vacant, it's empty like that. we get burnt like that. We tore it down and got rid of it, and we paid for it. Village paid for it, and it's still empty down there. So if you got this here, and you're just gonna take the porch off, if it's not safe, how long has it been there? And you say insurance, we were talking, the insurance is involved in it. Well, how can you force insurance to pay up, settle up, or whatever you're gonna do? Last, if I remember correctly, this place was sold by somebody who couldn't find out where the guy owned the place. Am I right? And that guy's supposed to be in Hoganburg? Remember that last meeting we had here, last month? So I don't see where you're gonna gain in by just taking a look at, you take a look at that house there, if it comes down, it's gonna come down right in the sidewalk, so close to the corner right there. And, I don't know, I think it's gotta be some way that you get after these insurance companies for crying out loud. This is ridiculous.
It's not even so much an insurance company in this scenario. Keep in mind, we got the pending litigation to go after the owner.
Well,
I mean, we gotta get the legally sufficient position of who the owner is, so we can then go after them to try to make them pay. I don't wanna just walk away from trying to get them paid. Unfortunately, because of potentially fraudulent sale, we have to let the legal proceeding play out. And while that plays out, in my opinion, you take care of the immediate threat. The immediate threat is the porch. Is the other structure a threat? Yes, but the immediate threat is the porch. And that's the only reason, I mean, I was reluctant to yet again put potentially taxpayer money on the line. But like I said last meeting, we gotta take care of the immediate threat, and then we gotta go after hardcore these owners. And I wanna go after them, I wanna win, and I wanna make it known that we are going after you, and you're gonna win. Because I don't want them just to keep walking away. I'm getting sick of them walking away.
you keep saying immediate. This has been going on for how long now? How long has that place burnt down?
We are not the judge.
Oh, well, you the owner of the building
If
we're
I was
talking
in
about.
charge of the,
That's
I
been
mean,
there.
do you want to just give up on it? I mean, we gotta let the lawsuit play out. We have to establish who the owner is if we wanna go after the owner. And until the legal system determines with finality who the owner
And
is,
you end up like what you got across the street over there.
so what are you proposing as an alternative?
I have no idea. That's what we got lawyers for.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Only yes? No?
No,
2 noes? Carries. We have annual appointment of fire chiefs nominated by Massena Volunteer Fire Department. I'm sorry, that was a resolution. I have to pull individually.
Wasn't a resolution.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Annual appointment of fire chiefs, and the roster was presented to you. So Department of Elections Chief Tim Quinville.
Yeah.
The resolution is
I'm sorry.
taxes.
Sorry about that. So we have a proposed resolution on new business for correcting and refunding erroneous taxes. Mr. Feld.
This is an annual resolution that gives the authority to the treasurer to work with the county director of real property services that anything that's under $2,500 for erroneous taxes that was either a refund or an issue in issuing the taxes for this current coming year. That if it's under $2,500, it gives the authority to work with basically the two departments and just take care of it rather than going through a lot more paperwork and having to go through the board. But all of those kind of move the process a lot faster, so.
It's identical language to previous years. So moved.
Second.
Mr. Lemire, second by Mr. Carville. Discussion. It's a resolution, poll individually. Ms. Winston. Mr. Carville. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Being annual appointments of fire chiefs nominated by the Volunteer Fire Department. Chief Tim Quinville, First Assistant Chief Paul Brownell, Second Assistant Chief Patrick O'Brien, Secretary Michael McCauley, Treasurer Tom McCauley, Sergeant at Arms James R. Davian, and trustees to 3-year terms Carlos Holcomb.
So moved.
Mr. Lemire, second by Mr. Carville. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. discussion for general code of Village of Massena, Chapter 270, taxi cabs and the vehicle for hire. Currently under 270-16, registration, register of license for vehicles for hire. Section B, subsection B, the number of taxi cabs for which licenses may be issued under this chapter of the Village of Massena shall be limited to 10 in number. We had a request from Ryan Francis to approach the board about this. Mr. Francis?
It's Barry.
Welcome. I'm sorry, Barry.
Barry, sorry. Really, we're just trying to open up a taxi business. So there's two parts of this. Medical transport is not now limit 10 vehicles. It's just the taxi cab, which would be people off the street technically. So in order to open up a medical transport business, you're leaving that much on the table for a new business to open, you know what I'm saying? We have a lot of requests as of now from Massena. So we operate in 3 towns right now: Hawkinsburg, Potsdam, and Massena. And basically I guess we have like the name recognition, so we get a lot of requests through on the medical transport side. But in order to make that like a viable business for us here in Massena, we kind of need to have that other side of the business, which would be, you know, people off the street, taxi cab business. All of our drivers are given like 401ks, insurance benefits. You know, we're a pretty good employer. We utilize new, safe vehicles, and we have a safe track record as far as past history goes. Is there any questions that you guys have?
So currently we have 2 companies. The 10 slots are currently filled. So to make an exception would require us to amend the local law, which would be set a public hearing, take public input, and then resolution will pass by this board.
All the 10 slots you said are full, but are they being utilized?
I don't know the answer to that.
That was also, I'm sure.
Not sure.
How many, if you get into open business, how many cabs you'd be looking for?
We were just looking to open 1. Yeah. Having all those spots filled already, we're trying to balance that.
Literally 1 license, 1 vehicle.
It's all people. But this goes a little bit further than just doing that, so.
Do you plan to expand after that?
No, it's just kind of to complement our business that we already have on Maple Street. We have a medical transport business, takes ambulance transports. So this is a subsection of kind of medical transports as well. But this business complements that medical side. So this would be just like the kind of off-the-street transportation.
So is your formal request literally that we change it from 10 to 11?
If that's what it could be, yes, that's very good. And there's also no way to check to see if all 10 spots are being utilized, so, I mean, technically they've been registered and, you know, accounted for, but, you know, nothing to say that, used.
I'd be open to a public hearing. I'm not saying one way or another that I'm in favor, but I'd be open to a public hearing, but we would need to have a specific, if others are in favor of a public hearing, we would need the language ahead of time, so we would need to decide on a number, if it's literally going to be 11, 12, that's if others are in favor, so what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm just wondering, in a town this size, how would we run 10 cabs? Is that much of a demand for it, that there's 10 cabs running all the time?
The license is attached to the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
So the reason I asked, do you really just need one, was a lot of times you're not running the one vehicle nonstop. You know, so I would assume you're gonna answer you needed two, minimum. You know, because if something happens to that one, you then gotta maneuver the license, you know, however it works. So, I don't know if that plays into what the other 10 are doing. I'm sure there are some people here that could probably answer for us.
I mean, so on the medical transport side, I believe there is demand because I get a lot of requests from my current company because we already have this type of business in Augsburg. So, we implement it here. On the medical side, not a lot of people that need to have their own vehicles, getting medical appointments, things like that. This is to supplement that business.
Okay, but you're not looking to take people down to a price drop where they get their.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, right. But my reasoning is to supplement the business that you already do.
I don't want to get into a public debate over this because it's not a public hearing, but we do have the owners of the two cab companies that currently operate here. Mr. Zacharakis and Mr. Green are both here. If they're willing to answer questions, if you have questions of them.
I'll start, yeah, I use all the spots.
We use all of our spots.
I use all five
We
of
could
those.
use more spots. I can show you our records, what we do in one day's time. And if you have one cab broke down, you're putting the public back down on time from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. We do an average of 180 calls to 200 calls on a 12-hour shift. And I showed Adam Love this many times when he came in our building. Right here is our records. This is what we've done from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. And I spoke with him and asked him, what happened, how can we rectify this when one of our taxis that broke down? Do we have a spot where we can have an extra taxi on that for when you've got a breakdown? So you're gonna have breakdowns. And we have 20 full-time, we have 20 employees that we support for that business. Not,
There's that much of a demand.
they're not counting the medical.
So what's the disadvantage of adding more?
We went to Adam about adding more.
We went.
He denied us every time.
Said that it's gotta be because of this board meeting here, you gotta come back to here and get it to change into Albany's laws and stuff, and I mean, he's correct. And I'm not saying that, but I mean, so like every year, I mean, it costs a lot of money for you guys to go and get this changed and all, put on the books and stuff. But then you gotta go back over here again and try to get it rectified where you could have more than 10, because there is more demand than 10 cabs. And now is another cab company coming in business, are they gonna work 8 to 5? Are they gonna say no, close the doors at 5 o'clock at night and say, well, don't worry about the public, it's more or less for the medical part of it? We're 24/7, 7 days a week, we never close our doors.
Mr. Zacharakis, did you have anything else to add?
Well, I have a lot to add, but like you said, this is not the place for public debate at this point. If you wanted me to sit down and discuss it, I'd certainly be happy.
Thank you. Trustees.
Can we hold off until we discuss,
Was that?
can we hold off until we discuss the pros and cons with the other companies?
Sure.
Personally, I think we should have been notified about this beforehand, so that we could have come and talked to you before. I drove from Maryland, I found out about this last night, I drove from Maryland to be here in time for this.
That's what we found out through the
Nah,
paper.
quite frankly, it's not cool that you guys did that to me. I'm not happy about it. It's very unprofessional.
Now, just a minute here. I
I'm not saying you
understand, I understand what you're saying, but this is a discussion. It's not a public hearing to change the law.
I understand that. I'm just saying that, I mean, it's obvious that they want information from us. I mean, fortunately, I found out from other people up here. I was down there, our grandson was born Saturday, so my wife and I went down there to spend some time. And here we are. I had to go back early. Yeah, part of the deal. I'm happy to do it, but courtesy goes a long ways.
Well, congratulations on the grandson.
Number 6.
But in terms of courtesy, the discussion item is a discussion for this group. When we decide, if we decide to move forward, we make the appropriate notifications, and you're talking a good 2-month process. So it's not, you're making it sound like it was a last minute thing that we tried to slide underneath, and it's not at all that, I think you know that. It's a discussion item that you wanted to be here for, and we appreciate that. But the appropriate times for debate and discussion are forthcoming, and you would get more than ample notice on that. You know, so I do take a little offense to that unprofessional comment.
Where we're coming from is, we found out about this on Facebook by Fraries advertising that they're hiring drivers in the village of Massena. I tried calling chief of police. As we know, the chief is not around. I was told to talk to the lieutenant.
I
left a
can't
message.
speak to business Facebook
I
posts.
understand, but.
It has nothing to do with this group.
We have made calls to the chief of police, and I was referred to the lieutenant, and he doesn't respond to phone calls. So we tried asking about this.
Okay.
You never left a message on
Okay.
that.
I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna say, I'm in the book. Anytime you have concerns with a village board action, call any of us, especially myself. Would love to hear from you. We'll make sure you're notified if there's a public hearing. But to say it was unprofessional for this group to want to have a discussion among the board is just not accurate or acceptable in my opinion.
So I hear no action at this point, you want to do some homework?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Freer. D, authorize requests for proposals for updating Village of Massena personnel policy manual. We discussed this at the last meeting, as I told you, our policy manual needs to be updated and brought into more modern times. There's a number of policies in there that are up to speed, but there are some that haven't been checked in a long time. So we've done some preliminary checking. We think the amount is significantly lower than you would anticipate, so we'd like to go out and see if we can get some proposals that fall within our procurement policy. If they don't, we'd obviously take different action.
So move.
Mr. Lebeer. Second by Mr. Carville. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we have appointment to the Business Development Corporation Board, Benjamin E. Murtaugh, 9 Prospect Avenue.
So move.
Mr. Lebeer, second by Mr. Carville. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Voucher warrants?
I move that the voucher signed by trustee Carville, maybe the mayor,
Yes.
be approved.
Second. Second by Mr. Carville. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Monthly report shows Volunteer Fire Department Inc. for 2018 of December, and the permanent firefighters for December of 2018. Communications correspondence, I have one, the Reorganization Study Committee, as part of the local government reorganization study that will be occurring. The first meeting of the citizens group will be on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So they will formulate some hierarchy of that committee and review the bids that came in for the proposal for the firm to conduct the study. Anything from the trustees? Final closing public comment period. Again, we ask you to stand, state your name, please come to the podium. Final public comment.
My name's Gina Snyder. I had just one question about the taxi cab thing. Does that have anything to do with like an Uber driver coming up here? Because I heard Potsdam had Uber. So I don't know, that's separate?
It's a separate issue, yeah. Uber's different.
Okay, so if
Still a
they,
vehicle for hire, but it's somewhat different.
okay, thank you.
Further public comment?
I got a couple questions if no one else is going to make comments. I'll wait, anyone else wants to go? Looks like no, okay. So I'm guessing questions on Andy McMahon's presentation should be directed to him. Okay. Oh, Herb, when you talked about during, when you guys were discussing whether or not to demolish the porch, when you talked about you're gonna end up like what you got across the street over there, you're talking about Tony's Pizza, right?
Right.
Okay. Actually, Gina asked my question. I was gonna ask if the taxi code affects Uber, but we got the answer for that. So that's everything I have. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Session.
I do not. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Revere. Second by Mr. Crowder. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.